the pop culture field, and
Welcome, one and all, to the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast, sitting right at that intersection of weapons, action, the military, and pop culture. Today's episode, not so much. Today's episode is kind of running away from the corner because, I mean, we can still include some things in there, but today it's all about the plot twist, the movie that makes you say, wait a moment, did I miss something? Because we're going a completely opposite direction now.
Yeah, it's true. Much like this episode. We all love good stories, and I think one of the elements of a really good story is that plot twist. We all remember, whether it's a video game, a movie, or a television show, or even a book, we all remember that point at which something was revealed that we had no idea, totally unexpected, that changes the way that we see the entire story or a character. And that's hard to do. That takes a really skillful hand, I think, and we can measure its effectiveness by how many of us and how often and how long we remember that plot twist and just how it really affected us. I think we like that too. We love novelty. We love surprise. I think that's the kind of part of the human experience. And so a good plot twist, something unexpected, man, it really sticks with us. Cameron, what do you think? What do you think makes a good plot twist? What do you think is the anatomy or the elements that make a good plot twist?
That's an interesting question because I think let me answer your question with a question. Like, what are the most memorable plot twists? Are they essentially the good ones or are they the shocking ones?
Yeah.
So, I feel like the ones we remember the most, like some of the movies we're going to talk about today, or hold on, let me just have a brain reset really quick.
Right. Take your time, man. It's the magic of editing.
Here I am. I think, like some of the movies we're going to talk about today, they have absolutely shocking plot twists. Like the movie might not be the best movie in the world, but the fact that it has something that makes you, spit your popcorn out, or, your extra large Diet Coke at the movie theater. Like those movies really stick with you. And those are the movies you tell your friends about.
Yeah.
But then there are some movies that are really well done and have a really good plot twist, and those are even better.
Right.
So I think just the shock behind it, that it is. You good?
Yep. Sorry, just morning gas, as is often the case.
I think I think a really good twist is the shock that comes afterwards. Like, is it impressionable? Is it something that you could have predicted? I know some like the elements of adding foreshadowing can kind of leave little breadcrumb trails for the audience to pick up. But then there's also some that just come out of left field and you're like, I did not see this coming. And those are the most memorable. What do you think?
Well, let's take one off the list just to use that as the personification or example to kind of dissect what we're talking about. So let's talk about The Sixth Sense, right?
Okay.
2002, 2001 or something like that. Long time ago. M. Night Shyamalan really brought him onto the scene in a big way. And he's known for his plot twists. There's always a plot twist. 99. Oh my God.
99.
I was a freshman. I graduated high school as a freshman in college that year. I remember seeing it in Greeley, Colorado. Yeah. So, because that's how I pattern my life. That's how I track the timeline of my life, is by where I was when I saw a certain movie. But The Sixth Sense. Okay. So you kind of said a little bit of the elements there. If you know what to look for, it's right there in front of you.
Yeah. So a rewatch, if you will. If you go back, rewatch it, you're like Leonardo DiCaprio, and Once Upon a Time, he's like, there he is. There it is.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So there's elements that are there, like, Bruce Willis gets shot in the very beginning. It kind of fades away. And then you just assume that he's okay. Yeah. And then the way that he interacts with other people throughout the movie, you kind of just, because you weren't explicitly told that he's dead, then you just accept like, oh, he's having a bad time with his marriage. He's not talking to his wife's ignoring him. So they're having a tough time. There's some unfinished business there. Then later on, you start seeing, if you listen to the commentary, M. Night Shyamalan's like, everything that's red is something that is affected by the supernatural. So the doorknob to his study that he keeps having to unlock when he goes, home. And then the big one is the kid that he says, I see dead people. And he's looking right at Bruce Willis when he says that. right? He's like, they don't know they're dead. So he's basically telling him what the plot of the story is, what the big twist is, but you don't notice it because you're just not conditioned to, or, the clues are there, but it's not explicit. So he did a really good job of weaving in the mystery, the plot twist. And then at the end, bam, it's a big reveal as Bruce Willis has been dead the entire time. Spoilers, it's been out for 24 years. But
yeah.
So
if you haven't seen Sixth Sense by now, okay.
My apologies. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Major spoilers, folks. This entire episode, if you didn't catch from the title, plot twists, right? Things that are revealed, things that are unexpected that we're going to talk about in movies and film and television, or, video games. Yeah, that's going to be big spoilers the entire episode.
Yeah. I mean, to be safe and to be fair, most of the movies we are going to talk about not brand new. These are kind of just of all time, like the list. These are great. These have been out for, close to, I would say the most recent one I want to talk about really quick came out in maybe like 2018.
Okay.
But by all means, like, these are not new movies, but still, if we mention a movie you have yet to see and is on your list to see, by all means, please skip ahead.
Yes, absolutely.
We're not going to hold any punches because this is absolutely about plot twists. So there's no getting away from that.
One more thing I'll say about plot twists is this is going to be obvious, but there's a reason why I'm saying it. But it has to be the surprise is part of it, right? It's something you didn't expect, but it can't be completely outside of what's been established in the movie. Right? It can't be some sort of Deus Ex Machina, God out of the machine. Like all of a sudden she's a goddess because she has these powers all of a sudden. And it's like, that was never established. It was never hinted at. There was no way anybody in the story or in the audience could have known that. So I think that's an important element, which kind of maybe goes along with what we were talking about with the Sixth Sense, is the seeds are planted and it's plausible within the story that this could take place. But it was done in such a way that it's surprising, it's enjoyable or entertaining, or at least shocking in a very kind of basic human way, which we'll talk about. One of the greatest ones. I see it on our list right now. But so yeah, man. Let's why don't we kick us off officially, Cameron? Let's start at the top, all right? Because there's a lot on this list, and there's a lot that I would love to get to because I love a good plot twist because it makes the story that much more memorable. Yeah. So we're going to run out of time. Spoiler alert, plot twist. We're going to run out of time.
We're not going to get to them all.
Let's start with our top ones. Like, you just can't live without talking about.
Okay. If we're going to talk about that and plot twists, we might as well talk about Old Boy first and foremost. Because when I mentioned I put that on the list, the reaction from you for the listeners was Izzy said, "That's the greatest plot twist of all time."
I'm telling you, man. Oh.
Yeah, so let's talk about Old Boy, because I know you're the one who introduced this movie to me, because I think we were talking about crazy movies, and you're like, you have to watch Old Boy.
Did you watch it? Tell me about your
experience. I did. I watched the American version.
Oh, Josh Brolin. Okay.
Yeah, the Brolin version, but I know you told me the Korean one was better.
Now, full disclosure, I've never seen the Josh Brolin version. But I was so impacted by the original Korean version that I'm like, well, what else needs to be said about this?
Okay. Well, is that a strictly IMO type of move right there?
Yeah. I'm trying to be fair these days with myself.
I'm sure there's differences.
People,
the first, I watched the movie, and to be honest, I did not want to watch the Korean version.
Oh, really?
I was just like, I'm over this. This plot twist is too gnarly.
Okay.
A sick movie.
Yeah, it is. It's totally demented.
Yeah, it's very demented. So why don't you, because I don't want to ruin anything because it's been some time. And since it's so impactful to you, why don't you explain the plot and kind of the twist?
Okay. Basic, short story long, folks. It's in Korea. There's a businessman. We see him. We are introduced to the main character, Dae-soo. He's drunk one night with his buddies. He's out on the street corner. He's like, hey, I got to call my daughter real quick. And he's on the phone. He's like, hey, I love you, honey, you know, and then it kind of goes over to his buddy who's buying another drink. And then it kind of goes back to the phone booth and he's gone. And he wakes up in this room. It's like a hotel room and he's locked in there. He's trapped. And he doesn't know why. Nobody talks to him. He doesn't ever see anybody, but there's food that comes in. And every once in a while, there's some gas that'll come in. He'll get knocked out. And when he wakes up, he'll be clean. He'll be shaven. He'll be taken care of. And he is there for who knows how long. You don't know.
A long time.
Long time.
Like a long years, right? This is
yeah, exactly. And so he gets real bitter and he starts training himself. And he's like, I'm going to find out whoever did this. And I'm going to get him. I'm going to beat him to nothingness, you know? And so this goes on for who knows how long. And one day he wakes up and he's outside and he's got a little bit of money in his wallet and he's back. And he just like, he goes out and he's trying to look for this. He's trying to understand what happened to him. And he meets this young lady who is like I don't know, she's like a prostitute or something like she just kind of works in the local restaurant, I think. And she has mercy on him. Yeah. She has mercy on him. And she kind of helps him out. So they kind of have a relationship while he's looking for whoever it was that did this to him. And along the way, he finds out where the address was of this place. And it's like right in the middle of town. It's this hidden kind of enclosed hotel type space. And he goes in there and there's this great action scene. And it's a one shot. So there's no cuts, but it's a tracking side shot. So it kind of follows him from the side down a hallway. And there's all these dudes that are trying to stop him from getting in there. And he has a hammer. And it's this fight scene that he's just hitting these dudes with a hammer. And he's getting beat up. And it's awesome. And it doesn't stop. It's really messy. It's very like the season 1 Daredevil type fights where they do the one shot. There's no cuts or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's really good. He meets this. So he finally meets this. He comes to find out that the guy who may be responsible for this is an old schoolmate of his. And he says, the guy comes to him, he says, hey, you know, we used to go to school together, and he doesn't really remember who he is.
Yeah.
And
isn't there something about like a hypnotist involved?
Yeah, he goes to a hypnotist at one time to help him uncover memories of you know, to help him out to discover who ultimately did this to him, because he has a lot of gaps in his memory. And so ultimately he finds out that it's this dude who has been in and out of the movie, and he's kind of given him clues like, hey, you should go over here. You should do this. So he's like, oh, this is the guy that did it. He paid to have me put in this place. So he's going to go get him. He goes to the guy's place. And what you find out, one of the big reveals is this guy that he goes after. They were in school together. And the old boy phrase comes from, it was kind of like a school phrase for them, like we're the old boys from this one school, like a school pride type thing. We'll always be the old boys or whatever. Yeah. And come to find out that the antagonist of the film had a sister in the school, and him and the sister were like having like an incestuous sexual relationship. And then what happened was the main character, he revealed it. And the girl, the sister of the antagonist, was so ashamed by it, she ended up committing suicide. And so this guy wanted to get revenge on the main character. So what he did is he had him locked away, right? And he tells him that they're confronting one another, and he's like, I wanted you to feel the same way that I felt when you shamed me and my sister back in the old school days. And so he gives him a book. He's like, this is my present to you. And so the main character opens up the book, and it's a picture book. And the first picture is of his little daughter, like as a little kid, you know, like a little, like 5-6 years old or whatever. He's like, oh my God, my daughter. And he starts flipping through the picture book, and she's getting older. And he sees, you know, it's these pictures that the bad guy has taken of her kind of surreptitiously, secretly. She's getting older. And finally he turns the page and he realizes that this woman that's been helping him out, this woman that he's been having sex with, this woman he has been in a relationship, was his own daughter.
And
he can't handle it. And then what the bad guy does is he's like, we're going to call your daughter. We're going to tell her. He's like, no, don't tell her. And he starts freaking out. He's like, I will do anything. I will, you know, I'll do anything. And he's like, I will never tell her. If you never tell her, it'll be our secret. And what he does, the main character takes scissors, and he takes his tongue out and he cuts off his own tongue to show that he's never going to tell. He's like, please never tell her. And the bad guy's like, okay. And he just kind of like lets it go. And he goes into the elevator, and the bad guy, like the antagonist, is riding the elevator down after that. And he's thinking about his sister. And then he ends up just blowing his own brains out. It's
Oh
kind of one
my
of those
God, yeah.
yeah. And so ultimately he has this knowledge, and the girl who is essentially his daughter comes to him, and she cares about him, and she wants to take care of him, she wants to be with him. So he goes back to the hypnotist, and he gets the hypnotist to make him forget everything that has just happened, so that he can, in blissful ignorance, be with this young lady, his daughter, and not really ever realize what has happened. And so,
Ugh.
and at the end, she does it, and he's okay, and he's happy, and that's the end of the movie.
They live happy ever after. Yeah, dude. Dude, that twist is this movie is just like, that's what I'm talking about when I mentioned the shock. The shock of this information, like how words can make you feel, or how watching something can make you feel so like it's a jaw-dropping moment in Old Boy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you read, this is obviously according to the Wikipedia page, which is super accurate, but like it's regarded as one of the best films ever made.
Really? I believe it.
Allegedly. And it's included in numerous quote unquote best of lists from many publications, and it was placed on as 64th place on an Empire list of top 500 movies of all time. This movie's insane.
Yeah. It's a revenge story. It's a lot. I guess the greatest films can be a lot of things all at once. So it's a revenge story, but it's a double revenge story. He thinks he's trying to get revenge on the guy that put him in there, that took away his life for 10, 15 years. But it's ultimately a part of the antagonist's plan to get revenge on him for something that happened 20, 25 years ago.
It's like a double revenge, down revenge.
And it's the fact that he makes him go through, he manipulates him into going through the exact same thing that he himself went through when he was having this incestuous relationship with his own sister, and she ends up killing herself. And when she finds out, and it's kind of this weird, it's when you have conflicting feelings. It's a happy ending, right? Because she doesn't find out, and he gets what he wants. He gets to be with her, but it's also sick and disgusting because it's his own daughter.
Because like the biggest taboo of like one of the largest taboos in our culture, I would say so.
Yes.
It's like you don't have sex with children, and you don't have sex with your family members. Like those are, those are the big ones.
Yep.
You don't do, right? Yeah. And it's like, and all these themes are introduced into this movie,
Yeah.
It's just really, it's a lot. It's an emotional roller coaster. Like I can imagine when, imagine this movie's in theaters for the first time in 2003, and just watching the faces of the people exiting the theater,
Yeah.
just like, what would you see on their faces?
Yeah.
Like you would see disgust, confusion.
They'd be going somewhere to talk
great
about it. Yeah. They go talk about it for 2-3 hours after the movie's over with.
Yeah, because they need time to process.
Yeah, that's how you know it really affected you when you're. I mean, we're obviously talking about it and including it on the list today. But after the movie, you got to go talk about it. You got to unpack it, and so there's definitely something that there's something in there about how its impact has lasted this long that makes it such a great thing.
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously a huge twist, and there are those movies that kind of are on the border of snuff film, and where it's like the only reason this movie exists and is popular is because it is so over the top and it is so gruesome and crazy. And I'm sure we could do an entire episode, because for some reason, as I've stated before on the podcast, that I love watching these movies, because just to say that I have seen it.
Yeah.
And they are so intense. Like there's some movies that have been banned in numerous countries that I've gone out of my way to watch.
Yeah.
Serbian film for one. And it's like, dude, it's like these movies are like they're a category of their own.
Yes.
And like for some reason, Old Boy, like all these themes, these taboo themes, people are so attracted to them for some reason.
Yeah.
Is it because they live vicariously through the the protagonist or they're like, is that like how they get their rocks off to where they're like, oh, like, is that how they expose themselves to it, but in a safe manner to where they don't feel bad about themselves? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of those. I think it's that for sure, because in movies and television and video games, we can experience things that we will never experience in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also in Old Boy, you really feel for the guy because you have no context for his life. When he gets put in there, you really want him to go out and get revenge
Sure. I
because
mean,
you're
he's
so
been in there for
sympathetic towards him.
15
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's mistreated, and we would hate that. We can identify with him if we were put there for no reason that we know of, and then we because we get it, and then to be taken on that journey with him, and then to have that other stuff be revealed in a skillful way, all of a
Yeah.
sudden we feel as twisted and demented. So maybe it's something about a filmmaker who can make the audience feel what the character's feeling in the movie somehow, to some degree.
Yeah.
We feel twisted
Oh,
and weird and dirty. We're like,
yeah,
why
because
are
we're like, we
watching
liked
this? You know?
him.
Yeah,
You know?
we liked
We're
him.
like, we
and
felt for him. We felt so bad for him. And now he's having sex with his own daughter. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, ooh.
yeah, but he was
Yeah.
manipulated. And so maybe it's a filmmaker that can layer those feelings on top of each other, and you can have them all at the
Sure.
same time. Makes it memorable.
It does. It does make it absolutely memorable. Well, that's Old Boy.
Yes.
Can I tell you about one? I mean, this one is most recent that I've seen. It's not a
Okay.
good movie by all means, but it has a super interesting twist.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, did you ever see Malignant?
I have only ever seen the part of Malignant which I was interested in, which is the last 15 minutes.
Oh, so the twist?
The twist, basically.
Yeah. So I remember when this movie came out. I think it was right around the time I was getting out of the army. What was it? When did this come out? Let's see. Like,
18,
was it
19?
2018? Oh, 2021. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
I remember when this movie came out because I'm a big like scary horror movie guy. So like when a new horror movie comes out, obviously it's in the limelight. I'm like, oh, this could be good. But I let it come out to DVD, and I finally got around to watching it a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, this has a very interesting twist. So essentially, you have this woman who is in a very abusive relationship, and before you even come to find out, you get some background of like this girl who's in psychiatric care for like her youth, and there's another person there as well, and you don't really get a lot of they're operating on her somehow, and you don't really get a lot of context, but there's two people there, and that's it.
Okay.
But anyways, fast forward, she's all grown up, and she's living on her own, and she's in a very abusive relationship. She's pregnant. Her man is beating the crap out of her, and then one day, like this very ghosty kind of like demon figure appears in her home and murders her husband and leaves her alive. And she wakes up and she has no recollection of how anything happened. All she remembers is like this apparition was like chasing her, and then she passes out and wakes up and like her man's dead. Anyways, cops are involved, and there's this other figure that like is cloaked that's committing all these murders for people, that have slight connection to this woman.
Mhm.
And he is, he wears a hood, and he has this like really interesting dagger thing, and he's going around and he's murdering people, and they're like, obviously the police are trying to catch this guy. So she's not a suspect until she's like just happens to be in the same in the same location of all these murders somehow. So anyways, she becomes a suspect, and fast forward through all this like crime and mystery, the guy that has been murdering all these people turns out to be her. It is her, but it's not her at the same time, because in actuality, she has a tumor that's on the back of her head that is also called a malignant tumor, which can develop to create like hair and teeth and my fiance's removed some of these in her clinic time, and yeah, it can grow like hair, eyeballs, even like teeth. And but this one developed into kind of like a Siamese twin in a way. So it had a mind of its own. You
Huh?
know, it could take control of her body, and you know, it was removed in the beginning of the movie. Like they tried to remove her, and you know, growing up, it was like her twin. It was a voice in her head because it had a
Mhm.
mind of its own, and it would tell her to do bad things, and you know, but it was on the back of her head, and it was always covered, and they removed it. But then she banked, I guess, in the movie when her husband was abusing her and she hit her head after she was being abused, it like woke up the tumor. It was benign, but then
Activated it.
yeah, it activated it again. So it like hit it really hard, and then it came to life and started taking control of her body when she was sleeping,
Mm.
and just killing everything. And actually, it was going after the people responsible for trying to remove the tumor from her as a child. So you just
Ah.
basically have this lady who like does everything in reverse. Like imagine like you know in the first Sorcerer's Throne Harry Potter, how the
Yeah.
guy's face is on the back of it's like Voldemort's on the head is on the back of that guy. It's essentially that, but
Yeah.
like it just opens up and has like teeth and eyeballs, and it's like a scary face, and it could take control. Like imagine if Voldemort could take control of that guy and turn around and just do everything in reverse.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, it's really cool how they do the choreography. I watched from the prison fight on because it's just
yeah,
like it turns I heard somebody talking about they're like, yeah, it really changes tone the last 15 minutes. It turns into like the Matrix movies.
yeah, it does. Yeah, it
But
does
they do a
totally.
good job because he kind of like breaks her elbows like in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
And everything it looks like a stunt guy bending over backwards, but for the malignant part, it would be bending over forwards. And the
yeah.
fighting is really kind of uniquely done in that
It
way.
is, but it's super demented, and you're like, because you know, there's those some movies that the twist is a little comical more than it is like, you know, especially like it starts out very horrific, like there's these brutal murders, like the character's pretty scary, you have no idea what's going on, but then you find that twist, and you're like, oh, this kind of becomes silly, and then you see all this like backwards stuff, and it's just like, this is silly, this is stupid, but
Did
no,
you
I just
also
had
was it ultimately like kind of dumb and silly? Is that
It
kind
was
of
at
the
the end,
final
like, the twist
analysis?
made it kind of less serious.
Okay.
It made it more of a comedy because 'cause you're like, "Oh, yeah, benign tumor with a mind of its own that
Yeah.
controls this lady and, you know, is murdering everybody that separated them."
Yeah.
Like, that's a little silly. It's you know, because the scariest things to me are things that can actually happen,
Yeah.
you know? Like, there's no way that's gonna happen.
No.
So, to me, it's super silly.
Well, no discussion of plot twists would be complete if we didn't at least spend a little bit of time on talking about Game of Thrones. Because that
Yeah. You
show, it
mean
was
a show about plot twists?
yeah, that show leaned heavily into plot twists. It was one of those shows that part of the reason why I think it became a worldwide phenomenon was that you didn't know who was safe. There was no
You couldn't
character.
predict anything.
Yeah, you couldn't predict anything. It was because it was the Game of Thrones. It was intrigue. People were backdoor dealing and working in the shadows against one another. And yeah, man, it's that has some of the most iconic and memorable plot twists from the first season, where the main character, uh, 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 Eddard Stark, Sean Bean, hashtag
Yeah.
save Sean Bean, uh, but he's the main character, and in the second to last episode, bam, he gets his head chopped off, and he's done
Yeah,
with.
boom.
Yeah,
You're like, "This guy's high profile actor too. There's no
yeah,
way they're gonna kill him off, boom, dead."
yep, exactly. And then that sets the tone for the rest of the seasons, and including the Red Wedding in season, I think 3, that is. And then kind of towards the end, obviously, when they started running out of book material, they still tried to do plot twists, but they got a little less conceivable. I think the worst one was what, 7th or 8th season. I think it was the 7th season when Littlefinger, who is basically the best at playing the Game of Thrones, he is the smartest character in the entire series. He gets double crossed or outsmarted by Arya Stark, and the sister with the red hair, Lyanna, or whatever. I forget her name.
Yeah.
But anyway, he gets outsmarted by them in a way that it was just kind of lazy writing, and I didn't really believe it when it happened. And so, but that whole show was, yeah, it was all about keeping you on your toes, never having a character that was safe, except for I feel like Tyrion Lannister. Peter
Yeah, he
Dinklage.
was pretty
He ended
safe.
up becoming safe towards the end because he was a fan favorite. And but yeah, lots of plot twists, not just plot twists in terms of characters dying, but unexpected things happening. And that's the power of J.R.R. Tolkien, George R.R. Martin. That's the power of his writing and how he really played with conventions of heroes and who we wanted and didn't want to live. And it wasn't about being a good or a bad person. In fact, if you were a good person, that probably worked against you in the world that he set up, because Westeros is all about backstabbing. It's all about backdoor dealing and playing that Game of Thrones where you either win or you die. So had to put that out there because for so many years that show was on everybody's lips. It was all about, did you see the Game of Thrones episode? And I mean, it still happens to this day, but with a lot of streaming service, we binge watch shows. And I don't really talk to a lot of people anymore, except for you, about like pop culture stuff. But it was all about like, hey, did you see the Game of Thrones episode? Oh my gosh, did you see what? And you had to watch it quick because otherwise somebody would spoil it for you online.
Yeah. Like people were watching it right when it came out.
Yeah.
I mean, they killed off Kit Harington, Jon Snow, and like he was a fan favorite, but they brought him back. Luckily,
Yeah, that was amazing too, because
that was the only one they did.
Yeah. He
That was
actually
the only
came
one
back.
they did that. Yeah.
Actually, in the book, what's her name? Stark, the Lady Stark, Eddard's wife. I forget her first name. You guys can yell at your radios and tell me.
Yeah.
At the Red Wedding, she gets killed, right? She gets her throat slit. But in the book, there is one of the Red Wizards, kind of the only people that actually have magical powers, the priests and priestesses of the Red God. He has the power to bring his buddy back to life in the band Brotherhoods Without Banners. But then in the book, he finds her body and he actually brings her back, and she takes over the band Brotherhoods Without. She takes over that band and she starts kind of marauding across the countryside. They call her Lady Stoneheart. And to talk, she has to hold her throat closed to talk, and she becomes totally heartless and cruel. And in the books, come the day they ever become finished, but in the books currently, that's what she's doing. So she's one of the only other characters that has been brought back to life by the Red Priests and Priestesses. But yeah, Jon Snow coming back, it was like, that's so satisfying. And then he gets to leave, right? Because he's technically died in service of the
the wall
Black
guards
Cloaks,
or what?
Yeah, the wall,
the Ravens, or what are they called again?
Yeah, they call it. Man, it's been so long, dude. Anyway,
it's been so long. I got to go back and rewatch these.
Yeah. I've thought about doing that all the way up until season 7, then I just stopped. But yeah, Game of Thrones, amazing plot twists, really well done, all the way up until season 7 and 8. But thank you, George R. R. Martin, and I forgive you for probably never going to finish the book series.
Yeah, I heard he's lazy as hell.
Yeah, I think I don't know, man. He's getting older, and he's probably having a good time going out and working on other projects, shows, and movies.
I mean, they already finished it. It's not like they can go back and rewrite the ending. I mean, they could.
He could rewrite based on the show. He's like, maybe I shouldn't do that because that's kind of dumb.
Maybe I shouldn't make the cripple the king. You
know?
Like, who's done nothing this entire season. That's just got pushed around.
Yeah, maybe I should take a little more time to develop the fall of Daenerys Targaryen and not have her switch in a single episode to an evil person,
Yeah, so. No, that would have been great. Yeah, instead of fucking, an entire story about the guy that can look through the eyes of a raven. Like, that's helpful. Like, come on.
So yeah, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones,
everybody.
Game of Thrones, everybody.
Everyone can tell we're super pumped about the ending. But no. Yeah, Game of Thrones is great, man. When you can build an entire franchise off, I mean, the buzz that surrounded, I feel like Twitter, back when it was Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, was, every time an episode of Game of Thrones came out, it was trending for like a week.
Yeah.
So that was great. But
good writing.
One of my favorite twists, a movie that I can watch over and over that I think it just has an outstanding twist. And, I think it gets a lot of praise because it's featured in like Rick and Morty. about like, you know, that because it has a twist. It's like calling, you know, prestiging something is a
Oh,
twist.
I just
Yeah, the
prestige
prestige.
you,
Yeah, be
Morty.
like, I just prestige, Morty. I just prestige you, Morty. Yeah, dude. It's The Prestige is an amazing movie. Now that's a great example of like a movie done well
Yeah.
with like a very tasteful but still shocking twist.
Yes, and one that you there's a couple twists in there. In fact,
Yeah.
throughout the movie, there's a couple of, but one of them, I don't. You can it hints at it for both their seeds planted. I think even in the very
Yeah.
beginning, you see all the hats, and you hear Christian Bale's
That's the
voice. Are you
foreshadowing,
watching
yeah.
closely? Yeah, it's a foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And then Christian Bale, with his whole thing with the finger, you know, injury and not acting like himself with his wife, and her being confused
Yeah.
by that, you know.
And they continue. It's like some days it's great and some days it's bad.
Yeah.
Because here we go. Huge spoilers ahead, folks, because this entire like okay, we already prefaced, so I don't even feel bad.
Yeah.
But The Prestige, essentially you have two very, you know, skillful magicians back in the 1800s,
1800s. Yeah. Right around the time of,
1800s. Top hat days.
Yeah. Top hat days. Electricity is a thing. Nikola Tesla,
Yeah.
whenever he was alive.
Yeah,
'cause he's in it.
whenever Nikola Tesla was alive
Yeah.
and inventing stuff. So you have these two gifted magicians, but they're rivals, and they're constantly competing for the spotlight, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
back then, you know, live shows were, you know, were the sole source of entertainment, and magicians played a huge role. You know, you had theater and you had magic. Those were
Mhm.
the big things that brought people together and, you know, brought entertainment. So it was, you know, it was big to get your own theater and your own show. So these two magicians would constantly compete with who has the best trick, and it was all about deceiving and blackmail and stealing other people's tricks and before they could come out. So, you know, there's a lot of drama behind it.
Mhm.
And you start seeing that these magicians would do anything to each other in order to obtain the spotlight. So they start, you know, trying to put each other away. They start to try to you know, ruin the other person's set in order to draw attention to their show, and
Mhm.
they, you know, sabotage the other person's tricks. Well, one guy who was working for one man who was helping him write his tricks, Christian Bale's character had a wife. And I'm sorry, Hugh Jackman. It's
Hugh
Christian
Jackman had
Bale
a
and
wife,
Hugh
yeah.
Jackman. Yeah.
Yep.
So Hugh Jackman's character had a wife, and during a set or a show, she was supposed to go in a water tank. It was supposed to be locked. Her hands were bound, and I guess Christian Bale tied the knot around her hands, but he was
Yeah.
supposed to use a specific knot so
Yeah.
she could wiggle out of it.
Yeah, and
But I
then
guess
she
he-
agreed to it because she wanted to be challenged. She's like, I can do that
Yeah.
kind of knot. He's like, no, it's too dangerous. But then her and Christian Bale kind of say, like, you can do it. Go for it. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
you know. Yeah, even though Hugh Jackman said no, they ended up doing the trick, and the wrong knot was tied, allegedly, and she dies. She drowns on stage in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman is obviously so overcome with grief that he hates and blames Christian Bale's character for the death of his beloved.
Yeah.
So he starts going down, you know, an obsession of how to ruin this guy. So, you know, in one of Christian Bale's acts, he has the bullet catch is one of his tricks, and essentially, you know, he loads a little flintlock pistol, but with his loading rod or his jamming rod would catch the ball, pull it out, and place it in his hand. So when the gun would go off, it would be a blank, and the bullet would already be in his hand, and he would just have to act like he caught it, and boom, bullet catch.
Mhm.
But Hugh Jackman, being a musician, knowing all the secrets, basically he dressed up and he volunteered to shoot the pistol, and as he grabs the pistol, he realizes, oh my god, this is Hugh Jackman with a mustache on. And then he puts an actual bullet in the thing and shoots him in the hand, and he blows his fingers apart. So now you have like Christian Bale, magician, like he does everything with his hands, and now he's missing, you know, his finger because he shot it off.
Yep.
But anyways, now they go back and forth. Hugh Jackman's back on the scene. He's got an assistant that falls in love with Christian Bale because he sent him to kind of spy on Christian Bale because he's doing these tricks. He's doing this teleporting man trick.
Yeah, it's an amazing trick. He doesn't know how he does it. He gets in one cabinet and then boom, he comes out the other cabinet and it's across the room. It's very simple. Christian Bale's very skilled, but Hugh Jackman's all about the spectacle, right?
Yeah.
He's all about catching people's attention and getting the adoration. So he sends Scarlett Johansson to spy and fall in love with Christian Bale, but she actually does fall in love with him. So she backstabs Hugh Jackman halfway through.
And then Christian Bale is married again, so he kind of has a side piece, and you know, he's got a daughter, and that's a big part of the future is. So he does this teleporting man. He's like, he has to use a double. The only way he can do it is if he uses a double. And he's like, they look identical then. So anyway, Hugh Jackman steals the trick, finds a double, but his double's like a drunk. And he's like, he looks exactly like him, but he's impossible to work with. He's like some, a true actor's actor where you can't work with the guy. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he does the double, and then he realizes that, one day, he steals his trick. Christian Bale realizes that Hugh Jackman truly stole his trick, and he's like, how does he do it? Because he improved it. He's like, it looks a lot different. And he goes kind of backstage. And when the guy falls through the floor and Hugh Jackman comes out to the other side, the guy falls into water and it locks and he drowns. And they find Christian Bale there, and he's like, you killed the magician. And he gets framed for murder, and then Hugh gets locked up. And then basically,
no, not Hugh. Christian Bale gets locked up.
Christian Bale gets. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Did I miscommunicate that?
I think so.
I'm sorry. You're following. So Christian Bale finds Hugh Jackman, falls through the floor into water. It locks, and he drowns. And Christian Bale's there trying to get him out. And they find Christian Bale with the dead body, and they're like, "You murdered him." And Christian Bale is framed for murder. And then he comes to find out Christian Bale gets locked up, and then his daughter's out there alone. Because his wife kills herself. Yeah. She can't do it anymore. Yeah. So his daughter's all alone, and his daughter ends up getting adopted by a guy. And she's like, who's the guy adopting her? Different name. And you come to find out it's Hugh Jackman. He's actually alive, and he's taking his daughter, and that's the ultimate revenge. Because the plot twist is that, one of the plot twists to the plot twist.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple in the movie. Yeah, and it's like Hugh Jackman goes to Nikola Tesla, who's like trying to invent something. Yeah. And he asks him for a device that can pretty much clone him. Yeah. And so that's how he gets the double. So basically, Hugh Jackman would step into this machine and disappear and pop out the other side. But what's actually happening was the trick, or the machine would clone him, and that clone would fall. Or no, he would kill himself essentially every night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he would so he would fall through the floor. Hugh Jackman would fall through the floor, kill himself in the tank, and the clone would come out on a rafter or something.
Yeah, he'd put the device somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the ultimate commitment to the trick, is literally killing yourself every single night for spectacle. Yeah. And basically, that's kind of the science part. And he finds out that he's been doing it, and he framed him for murder, and now he's going to continue doing the trick and hide the machine, now that he was basically getting Christian Bale murdered or killed for his death. And then at the end, you realize Christian Bale, they're going down to the stage to get rid of it, and Christian Bale's there, and he's like, what? How'd you get out of prison? And boom, he shoots Hugh Jackman. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, dude, you got the wrong guy. You found... Boom! Plot twist. You find that Christian Bale has been using a double.
He is a twin brother. Yeah, he had a twin brother the whole time that we never knew about. He never said anything, not even his own wife. So the other brother had to cut his own fingers off.
Yeah, that was the most brutal part of the movie. Yeah. Yeah, he cut his own because he lost his fingers, and he's like, you have to do this to look exactly alike. So yeah, he takes like a wood chip, and they took his finger off. And that's why like sometimes his wife would be in love with him, or he would be in love with his wife, because that was actually Christian Bale. Yeah. And then the other times when they'd switch, because Christian Bale had an assistant who he was a big fat guy, and he'd put on a belly and a big beard and everything, and he would take care of the daughter. But so when Christian Bale would dress up as that guy, his twin brother would be the one that was in love with Scarlett Johansson and always fighting with the wife. Yeah. So it's so done. And I apologize for the long-winded explanation that, Izzy lost, and you probably all lost. You got to watch the movie. It's great.
It is great. And it's one that you really have to pay attention to. Obviously, Christopher Nolan, when he was still coming, every movie, I don't think Christopher Nolan makes bad movies. No. This was one of my favorites of his, because there's misdirection. The whole idea is that there's the There's like the presentation. I forget what they call it. There's 3 steps to a magic trick. And there's
the misdirection.
yeah,
the
there's
reveal.
something, the turn, and then the prestige is the reveal. So there's one step that I forget. The second step, which is called the turn, and that's when there's like you see something, but it's not really what you think.
The pledge. So you
the
have the pledge, the turn, and
the
then the prestige.
Yeah, there you go. It's the reveal at the end. So the whole movie has this theme of like you're not seeing what you're actually seeing. Like he's showing you something, but it's not what you think it is. And so the whole movie is full of that layer by layer by layer. Christian Bale does it, Hugh Jackman does it, and then Christopher Nolan does it by showing us these 2 stories, in tandem with one another. So if you haven't seen The Prestige, sorry, we just spoiled it for you, but you should still watch it because there's a lot more than the explanation that we just gave you. There's a reason why it stuck with us the whole time.
Yeah, plus it's got a killer cast. Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Michael Caine's in it, Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Like it's a killer cast of people. I'm surprised it's only got a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with when the Just Watch score is 97%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an audience score is way higher. But yeah, The Prestige was awesome. You can't talk about a plot twist without having that one. So go watch it if you haven't seen it and you're not, ruined by my explanation.
Okay, I know we're running low on time, but I have to talk about some video game plot twists because they're so well done that they stick with you and they are part of why you remember a game and also want to go back and play a game. I guess that's kind of the downfall of a plot twist is once you see it once, you can't see it for the first time ever again. And so Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic has one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest video game plot twists in history, because the whole time it takes place in the Old Republic, so thousands of years before the events of the movies that we know. You are playing a character who has lost their memory, and they're trying to find out who they are and what's going on. And the whole time, that the events that have been set off in the game, the bad guy, the antagonist, is Darth Revan, and he's a very mysterious figure. And he's got a cool mask that he wears, and he's got his assistant. I forget the guy with the mechanical jaw, but so those are the antagonists of the movie. And you're going through and you're playing, and Knights of the Republic has a great morality scale, so you can either go more towards the light side and the dark side, and then you can influence the characters around you, a la Mass Effect, to either be light or dark, depending on what their moral compass is. But the big reveal, as you get closer and closer to the end of the game, is that you are Darth Revan. There's a flashback scene where it's revealed that you are Darth Revan, and then Darth Revan was captured and they erased his memory to, I forget what the ultimate, plot point was, but to try to, get you to turn good or whatever. And then you can have you make a choice about whether or not you actually want to go back to being Darth Revan, or if you want to leave that life behind and become actually a good Jedi. So that it's so well done because Darth Revan in the first game is built up to be such a horrible guy, and you hear about all the things that he's done and who he's influenced and how he's this great figure on the dark side, the Sith side, and then to find out that it's you. Man, the way that they do it, it's so great. It gave me chills when I did it, and everybody I talked to on stream when we talk about great games, it always comes up, and we always lament the fact that they're not going to do a remaster. They were going to work on a remaster of KOTOR, of Knights of the Old Republic, but I think it fell through. I think either the studio got bought up or they canceled it or something like that in an acquisition. But anyway, Darth Revan reveal, Knights of the Republic, and then honorable mentions, the main player's identity in BioShock 1. You never know who he is, but it's hinted at throughout the entire game. That he's and then later on you find out he's actually a genetically created clone or something that was sent in to bring Andrew Ryan down, and he's been manipulated by another character the entire time with code words like "would you kindly," and he's been leading him and manipulating him to kill Andrew Ryan. And then at the end he has a choice to either take his own, do a good path or do a bad path. BioShock 3 has a great twist. Booker and Comstock are the same person. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, General Shepard betrays the team and kills Roach and Ghost. Shadow of the Colossus, the main character, has been working for a demon the entire time. He's been working for a bad guy the entire time. And then if you haven't played Oh, Dead Space, Isaac hallucinating his dead wife. You don't find out till the end. And then Spec Ops The Line, if you've never played Spec Ops The Line, let me ask you to do yourself a favor and play it. Not so much for the gameplay. The gameplay is kind of meh, but the story in it, which Cameron, we never really, we were going to work on a video.
Yeah,
at
that was a yeah. We learned from Gameology that maybe you should do a little bit of research before you watch a video game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did that Spec Ops The Line for Gameology, and we were totally wrong about the scenes that they gave us because we didn't realize that it shows all these guys they're burned by white phosphorus, and we're like, oh, we'd kill those guys.
We're
whoever
like,
did it.
hell yeah, dude,
Yeah.
burn them.
Yeah, it turns out like, oh, those are American soldiers that did that, and so we had no context. I went and played Spec Ops The Line, and we had intended at one time to do a video on it ourselves, but just didn't work out. But I watched a bunch of videos on it, played the game myself, and it's actually one of the better plot twists in video games, where essentially the antagonist, Colonel Conrad, you know what? Actually, for this one, I'm not going to say it because I really would like people to play this. If you're into military games, if you're into kind of psychological trauma and PTSD stories that are really well done and well presented in a narrative form, Spec Ops The Line, go watch that. But that's it for my honorable mentions, Cameron. I don't know if you have any more before we move on to the game section.
I guess honorable mentions that touched me were obviously for video game world, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 with General Shepard betrays, kills Ghost. That one was hard, and then also Call of Duty Black Ops. Obviously Mason, you're being brainwashed and programmed, and Mason, the numbers, Mason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Reznov's been dead. Reznov's been dead the entire time. You're just imagining him.
Yep.
So that was a really cool twist for video games. But that's pretty much just looking down the list here. That's the main one I would like to talk about. Other than American Psycho, that has a really good twist at the end, and that's just a classic movie. Talk about movies that you quote all the time during military service.
Yes.
Do you know how many times I've said I need to return some videotapes in my lifetime? Too many.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that's it for me. And all we got left now is our game.
Yep, that's it, man. And I have the game for you. This game will be called A Completely Normal Plot Twist.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 3 multiple choice questions, but plot twist, they may not be about what you think. So Cameron, short and sweet, 3 questions, multiple choice. First one, here we go.
All right.
In M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense, it is revealed that Bruce Willis's character is killed early on by an assailant in his home. Who played the assailant? Plot twist! What city does the movie take place in?
Okay. So the city, is it multiple choice, you said?
Yeah. Is it A, Chicago, B, Boston, or C, Philadelphia?
I'm going to say, I think it's in Chicago. Wait, is Chicago, Philadelphia, or Boston? I don't think actually, it's on the East Coast because I remember it's very cold, so they're all bundled up.
That could be any of those. So
yeah, that could be any of those though. Is it in Philly? I don't. Oh man. No, I'm not gonna say Chicago. I'll repeal. It's either Philly or Boston. I'm just gonna say. Let's go Philly. I feel like they're Philly folk.
Correct, Cameron. That is
Nice.
true. Most of M. Night Shyamalan's movies take place in and around the Philadelphia area. Excuse me, because he's from Philadelphia. So most of his stuff.
Sense.
Yeah, most of his earlier movies especially. But
right.
Good, Cameron. You got 1 for 1. Next one. In the movie Fight Club, we find out that Ed Norton was Tyler Durden all along and that Project Mayhem was his creation. What is the name of the street? What is the name of the street the house is located? Plot twist! What is Ed Norton's, the narrator's, job in the beginning of the movie?
Can you repeat the question? You broke up a little bit. I couldn't hear you. Hold on. Okay, go for it.
All right. The actual question, I'll get to the post-plot twist question. What was Ed Norton's job in the beginning of the movie?
Ed Norton's job in the beginning of the movie. All right, what are the options?
Oh, A, he was a recall coordinator, B, insurance adjuster, or C, accountant.
Ooh, I believe. Oh no. I always, this Edward Norton. Did he sell insurance or was he an accountant? I know he worked in an office,
Yep. Cornflower, blue
but
ties.
for some reason I always get Fight Club and Wanted confused
Oh,
be-
yeah. James McAvoy.
because they're literally the same character development.
Yeah.
Like you have a guy that's just like kind of a nobody, and
Oh,
then he
man.
finally like he meets a person, they change him into like a crazy individual,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like, but does he hit his boss with the keyboard, or is that in Wanted?
That's in Wanted.
That's in Wanted, and he's
in
an
Fight
accountant
Club,
or
he
some.
beats himself up in order to
Yeah.
blackmail
Oh
his
yeah, he beats
boss.
himself to a bloody pulp in front of the guy. Yeah, he keeps like punching him in the face.
So
I'm gonna say he sells insurance.
recall coordinator, insurance adjuster, or accountant.
I think he's an insurance adjuster in that movie.
Ooh, plot twist. He is not an insurance adjuster. He is a recall coordinator. Remember, in the beginning, he talks about the numbers that are required to trigger a recall. So it doesn't matter how many people. It only matters if that number of failed like airbags or fire suppression systems. Like there's the scene where he's looking at the burnt out car and you can see the fat burned into the seats. And so that he is out there playing the numbers with people's lives, basically determining whether or not a recall should be triggered on a product.
Okay.
Yeah. It travels
well,
a lot.
It's been a while since I've seen Fight Club, so I'll take that L. Now I gotta go watch it again.
All right, man. We got one more. In Dead Space, the video game, you find out that Isaac was hallucinating his dead wife the entire time. What is it? Dead wife's a plot twist. What's the name of the ship the game takes place on? Is it A, the USG Ishimura, B, the UMB Hattori, or C, the USG Minakawa?
I think it's A, because since you've talked about Dead Space before, and I think that name sounds the most familiar.
It's one of my favorite games. You are correct, Cameron. It is the USG Ishimura. Dead Space, one of the greatest horror games ever made, with a great plot twist that Isaac is just as crazy as everybody else. He's being manipulated by the marker, and he thinks he's seen his wife the entire time. Actually, in the remake, I think they improved upon the storyline because in the original, he was hallucinating his wife, and she just wasn't there. Nothing was happening. But in the remake, he was hallucinating. He was seeing somebody else. He was actually interacting with somebody, but he saw his wife, and then they saw their lover. And it's revealed later on that they were both being manipulated and seeing a different person. So that was an actual person that he was interacting with, just not his wife.
Okay.
Right, which I thought was an improvement. So nerd out there.
Oh, good, man. Is that all? Is that all the questions?
That's all the questions, man. You got
you got
2/3.
2 out of 3, not bad.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Nah, 2 out of 3 and a rewatch of Fight Club.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Cameron, that is it. It's not a plot twist to say that I really enjoyed this episode. It's always fun to rehash things that are memorable, and the best plot twists stick with you forever, for a long time.
Absolutely. Plot twist. I hated this episode. And I never want to be here again. Just kidding. That's a plot twist. I'm lying.
Double prestige. You just prestiged us.
Yeah, I just prestige you guys. Check that out. But we won't prestige you anymore. But we will say, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure, if you want more like this, to check out our YouTube. We have some awesome YouTube content, like the First Formation with Izzy and the Debrief with myself. I think we need to update our merch store. So if you've been trying to cop any PCFM swag, bear with us while we try to fix that.
But hey, if you need something to tide you over, Cameron has got some amazing apparel.
I do.
Kick God apparel.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out kitgod.co, that would be awesome. We got some new products going online. We got some awesome custom-made, handmade, full-grain leather wallets made by a active Special Forces operator that I've collaborated with. They are super awesome. Have one myself, and they also look really cool. So if that interests you, check out kitgod.co. But
Right on.
Anything else, Izzy?
Check out the Is Files, folks. If you like horror gaming, I've got a great new channel where it's just more gaming focused, where I play horror games, and then there's more stuff along the way. By the time you hear this episode, actually, go to the PCFM YouTube. We got some more. We have some more video game reviews and reactions to video game trailers, and we're going to be rolling out more of that stuff. If you guys like that kind of content, make sure you comment and like the videos, and we'll put out more for you.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks for sticking with us for this episode of the PCFM podcast. We will see you next week, and
Cue music.